Despite the general consensus that the New Day of Rebirth mini-set is underwhelming in terms of power level, we find its design genuinely fascinating. In many ways, it captures the very essence of what makes us love Hearthstone. Some of the cards manage to impress us outright. Today, we've prepared a short review of the mini-set as a whole, where we'll also try to answer an important question. Can this approach to design actually improve the competitive environment, or will it ultimately make things even more disappointing?
Time to rock and roll!
Hello my friends. My name is Bot Mathematician and this is Holomancer.
Also, Chief Investigative Reporter Dora joined us this evening.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop. For some reason we don't quite understand, many players believe that the release of a mini-set can completely turn competitive play around, and that after its launch and the following balance patches, the direction of the game might radically change. Judging by the team's behavior, I'm more and more convinced that they're quite comfortable with the current state of affairs, and we won't see any serious shifts beyond a few targeted tweaks.
Right now is a critical moment for Hearthstone, and the mini-set could become a factor that breaks a very depressing trend.
For more than 2.5 months, player satisfaction has remained consistently low, showing clear signs of prolonged stagnation. Only 2% of our audience is fully satisfied with the current meta, while 60% are more likely dissatisfied with what's happening.
It's been a very long time since players have been this unhappy with the game for this long. Yet it seems the developers don't really see this as a serious problem. At least, we see no sign that the team intends to change the current design philosophy, which relies heavily on an abundance of combo interactions. The last patch didn't affect the trend in any way, and the inflated expectations around the mini-set are a direct result of this. Players keep convincing themselves that something must happen soon, but each time it ends in disappointment.
In the current circumstances, the weaknesses of mini-sets may not improve the situation at all. In fact, they could make things even worse.
And this doesn't entirely depend on the developers. The main reason we remain skeptical about mini-sets is that their cards are created completely detached from the current state of the meta. Very often, balance patches alone aren't enough to fix the situation. But releasing just 3 well-targeted cards for each class could have an enormous positive effect, if those cards are designed for the specific state of the game. That, however, is not the philosophy of mini-sets. As a rule, most of the new cards end up useless, and the few that see play are usually either designed to reinforce already strong archetypes or to enable new toxic interactions. Things can get even worse if the meta has already drifted far away from the direction developers originally intended.
Here's a small example. One of the goals of the new mini-set is to strengthen quest decks. Quest Paladin was the best archetype at launch, strong enough that developers had to nerf it. The mini-set has now given it a very good tool. Firegill is essentially a balanced version of the iconic animated broomstick and will definitely strengthen the archetype. Mage, however, wasn't so lucky. Techisaurus was supposed to support Quest Mage, but here's the trick. The only viable variation is Quest Spell Mage, which doesn't use minions at all.
Quest Hunter desperately needed strong support, but instead, it got a beast that doesn't fit a quest chain whatsoever.
Priest received one of the best cards in the set. Ritual of Life is basically a copy of the well-known Druid spell Cactus construct. It's a very flexible, tempo-oriented spell that empowers the class, but for the quest archetype, this support is far from sufficient.
One of the key features of the current design philosophy lies in combo interactions. Developers deliberately fill the game with cards that are weak on their own but become explosively powerful in synergy with specific tools. Often these cards sit on the sidelines for a long time, just waiting until players discover the right synergy for them. On top of that, the game is designed in a way that makes it very easy to exploit these interactions through predictable effects like draw, resurrection, cost reduction, or special summons. Right now we're caught in an endless cycle of meta updates, where nerfing the current toxic combo interactions simply brings back the old ones we were already fighting against last year. Combo interactions are supported so heavily that they leave almost no room for more traditional styles of play.
In this mini-set, for reasons that aren't entirely clear, the developers placed particular emphasis on very high-cost cards. In the current environment, such cards are usually played only as combo components that multiply an effect, or if they provide immediate global board impact.
Story of Umbra feels far too slow and situational. With a bad Discover, you're essentially skipping turn 7. Within today's gameplay, where outcomes are often predictable, playing such a card is an extremely risky move. Seismopod looks completely hopeless. A mass buff effect in the late game is nearly meaningless. The card feels as if it was designed specifically for players to find ways of summoning it much earlier. Hunter's spell Devil Sore Mask has some potential thanks to the keyword charge. That said, it will be very difficult to find any meaningful synergy in a meta where many games are already decided by turn 5 or 6. Atlasaurus and Behemoth Mask look like interesting control tools for Priest, but straight out of a very distant past. I honestly can't imagine what would have to happen to the meta for these cards to become useful. Paladin's Spell Hero's Welcome looks like a completely useless card, even compared to metas of years gone by.
Bat Mask clearly illustrates the combo-driven philosophy of modern design. All players need is to find the missing pieces of the puzzle to assemble an OTK. Used in a traditional way, the card is worthless. Asphyxiodon is only good if you summon it directly from your deck with another card. The cherry on top is the spell Guard Duty. On paper, this is actually a pretty strong card. Another advantage is that it doesn't conflict with Hydration Station. It will likely be the easiest to find a home for. The only question is whether Warrior actually needs such an expensive tool right now.
If you look carefully at this list, you'll notice that most of these cards are balanced through randomness, a mechanic that fits poorly into today's competitive environment.
Overall, I like the design of these cards when viewed in a vacuum, and I'd love to live in a parallel universe where they all had some real scenarios for application. But it's extremely hard to detach from the current reality. It's almost impossible to evaluate new cards without considering the state of the meta. There's no sense in discussing their potential power or usefulness if they look completely hopeless in today's circumstances.
Let's move forward and take a look at the cards that are the true calling cards of this mini-set. Some players believe that the value of a mini-set largely depends on the strength of its legendary cards. The Egg of Kilos is a new neutral legendary. Destroy the egg 5 times and you summon a monster with 20/20 stats. We've seen similar concepts many times before, the earliest being the Darkness. That was fun, but almost impossible to execute. Design has evolved since then, and completing such tasks has become routine. In today's environment, the Egg of Kilos can be cracked in a wide variety of ways. Alongside it, Holy Egg Bearer is a critical support piece. It reliably draws the Egg of Kilos in the early game, making the strategy much easier to implement. Cards that pull specific targets consistently from the deck are a hallmark of the current design philosophy.
Players will definitely find more than one way to make this strategy work. The developers handed us puzzle pieces, and putting them together requires creativity, something that is possible precisely because of the current design philosophy, but that doesn't necessarily mean the strategy will be competitive.
According to early survey results from our community, this legendary is among the weakest released this year. The second neutral legendary is Beast Speaker Taka. For 7 mana, you discover a class beast, gain its stats, and then summon it again on death. The fact that in most cases you end up with a body that has no effect is very disappointing, at least under current conditions. The card looks useless, but as we've said before, the game is built in such a way that powerful combos can emerge. Cards like this often exist just to find the right partner. For example, pairing it with Shutterblock could triple the effect and, in combination, generate value comparable to Nebula. Against certain archetypes, that could be a checkmate scenario. This is a perfect example of a card that's terrible on its own but may become relevant within a linear interaction. Still, there's no guarantee that this will be competitive, especially in the current meta. Personally, I find the sheer amount of value extracted from the linear interaction of just 2 cards to be uninteresting and toxic, yet another symptom of today's design philosophy. But if the team were to launch a full-scale crackdown on explosive combos and significantly slow down the meta, this could be the kind of strategy that takes their place.
Now let's move on to the new class-specific legendaries. The legendary dragon the Great Dracorex is extremely polarizing. It's a turnaround effect card. It can instantly erase an opponent's advantage by dealing 5 damage to all minions, while also becoming a threat that's hard to ignore. On top of that, it can even be summoned as early as turn 5 thanks to the spell Chemical Spill.
Personally, I don't like it when a single card can turn a match around in such a linear way, but players definitely love effects like this.
The effect is comparable to that of the Titans, though it's still less destructive. Power creep has noticeably slowed down, and that's something we can't ignore. On its own, without manipulation through alternative summoning methods, the card feels a bit odd, especially within a hypothetical quest meta. By turn 8, Murloc Paladin could easily have more stats on board. For Quest Warlock, the board isn't as important, since it can be rebuilt in a very straightforward way. Against Quest Shaman, This card may also be ineffective if the minions already have Divine Shield after quest completion. Meanwhile, Quest Mage doesn't rely on the board at all. So I honestly don't quite understand how the developers envisioned this card functioning.
Mirix the Crystalline is the 4th legendary, and my favorite card design in the entire mini set. The card in your hand transforms into the last minion your opponent played. The presence of cards like this in the meta can force opponents to play more cautiously, sometimes ending their turn with their weakest possible minion so as not to hand you something with a game-breaking effect. It's a well-balanced card with high interactivity, and it makes gameplay much deeper and more engaging. Despite my excitement, in the current environment this tool looks more fun than competitive. The card can occupy an important hand slot for too long, and that doesn't align with today's deck building philosophy, where every piece has to actively contribute to the end result.
Let's continue the review and look at a few more decent class cards. Among the Druid cards, I really like the design of Longneck Egg. To get the stat bonus for your minions, you first need to break the egg. In this case, a powerful effect is limited by an activation condition, forcing you to make trade-offs.
The Spell Panther Mask looks very valuable on paper. It's a mass buff with the added benefit of drawing 2 cards for 4 mana. The card is quite flexible. It can be used to protect an aura minion or to strengthen a token. If we evaluate cards based on power to mana ratio, Raptor Nest Nurse is the best card in the expansion. For just 1 mana, the minion generates 2 random cards. That's simply too good to ignore. I also want to highlight Crater Experiment. This is another very flexible card, one that could find a place in many strategies, including Quest Paladin, Quest Shaman, and various hand buff decks.
Guys, I also want to share my thoughts on a few more class cards. The Death Knight spell Soul Rest Ceremony gives your minions +1 attack and rush, but at the cost of them dying at the end of the turn. This is an extremely flexible tool. I really like the presence of a downside. On one hand, it balances the card, but on the other, it creates additional use cases, including death rattle strategies. Hollow Direhorn is yet another attempt to create an immortal minion. It's a cool concept, but far too situational. To maximize its lifespan, you need to sacrifice 2 minions in a single turn while also spending 6 corpses, a massive price. The spell Corpsicle looks like the more preferable and flexible option in most scenarios.
Things aren't too exciting with Shaman. Tortotem was clearly designed to support the quest archetype, generating a random minion with multiple types. It looks like a significant upgrade for the strategy, but for it to actually work in the current meta environment, the generated minions need to be cheap, otherwise, the effect risks being useless.
Chillspine Stegodon can fit both quest and elemental archetypes. The card doesn't just deal damage but, with synergy, can also hold back an opponent's assault. Meanwhile, the spell Fire Breath perfectly complements a potential elemental strategy. It combines exactly what we love, explosive damage with a buff. The only question is whether that alone is enough to make the archetype competitive.
The Demon Hunter cards look outright strange, especially considering that the class's strategies revolve around strong combo interactions. Diabolus Rex feels like a good control tool, but for some alternate universe. Skittish Saucier acts as a mana cheat, but with an overly situational effect. Current archetypes function perfectly well without it. The Spellhorn of Feasting offers plenty of value on paper, but its situational nature makes it difficult to trigger immune for the summoned minions. From a design perspective, it's a cool card. In practice, though, under current conditions it may just be too inefficient. It was created primarily to support the quest archetype, but without major balance changes, that support stands little chance of success. Mage cards are at best disappointing. The Spell Sheep Mask has a clever, situational, but very niche design. Essentially, you turn a minion into an explosive sheep, copying both its stats and its death rattle. You could target your own minion, but you'll usually get more value from using it on an opponent's. However, you need additional actions to trigger the explosion. So, on turn 4, an expensive cost by modern standards, the spell doesn't guarantee you full value. The spell Tribute Dance is much more flexible. You can transform an enemy minion into your own, or the other way around. Beyond serving as a control tool, it has combo potential by allowing you to clone your own minions. That said, the high mana cost means it's useful only in narrow scenarios. Plus, we already have a very similar spell that provides the same combo potential, but at a much cheaper cost.
As you may have noticed, some classes received mask spells. direct callbacks to iconic cards from Hearthstone's past. Most of them look hard to pull off because of their high costs, but Rogue got a cheap minion that generates these spells at a reduced cost.
And honestly, it feels like most of these cards were created mainly so that Rogue could access them and have some fun. It's an interesting approach to building a new archetype, essentially around a single class card. On top of that, it ties in nicely with the expansion's thematic narrative. But again, we still don't know how viable Mask Rogue will actually be.
Guys, let's move to final thoughts and share our impressions of the mini-set as a whole.
For me personally, despite my general dislike of the mini-set concept, I really enjoy the design approach the developers took here. This isn't the first mini-set that impressed me. Most of the cards are well balanced, randomness included. The effects are situational, maximum value isn't guaranteed, and players are pushed to take risks or make compromises.
These are exactly the qualities we love about Hearthstone. This isn't the first set with a strong nostalgic vibe either. It really feels as if it was created for the meta of years past. But in reality, all of those positive traits clash with what's happening in the current competitive environment. Why settle for compromises in pursuit of value when top decks offer predictable outcomes in a straightforward, linear fashion, or create explosive interactions?
As it stands, mini-sets feel like an illusion of what the competitive environment could look like, but never will. They are collections of well-designed cards, but designed for metas of the past. The new mini-set is no exception. At best, this approach is strange and provides little tangible benefit. For example, after the release of Embers of the World Tree, only half the cards were even worth experimenting with. 4 months later, just 8 are still seen in play, and only 4 of those appear in decks with a positive win rate. Even in the short term, the usefulness remains very low.
Based on everything we've seen, we don't believe this mini-set will have any significant impact on the game.
That said, unexpected interactions and combos can always emerge.
It's a bit sad that we'll probably never get the chance to experience these cards in an environment where they truly matter. Despite all my criticism, I'd love to taste a meta where every single one of these designs could shine. And I won't stop reminding you that the Forgotten Twist format could have made this possible.
Dear viewers, what do you think?
What are your impressions of the new cards?
Let us know your thoughts below and join the polls in your community tab. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to support our content and stay updated.
Traditionally, we want to express our boundless gratitude to our sponsors.
Dear friends, your help is invaluable. We will be grateful for any support.
Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for spending this time with us. We really hope that we will have the opportunity to get in touch in the next video.
Take care of yourself.
And never give up.
Job's done.